No ring, no rules. You already know the code. Stepping clean. Leave louder. No ring, no rules. We make our own way. No ring, no rules. Legend starts today. No ring, no rules. Watch us take the crown. No ring, no rules. We don't back down. Lights off, name on, pressure in the room. Cold eyes, sharp grin, big talk, sealed doom. We came built for it, heavy in the chest. Every line hits hard, every move say less. Hear that hush now, that's the room goes still. One breath, one spark, then we break the seal. No ring, no rules. We make our own way. Legend starts today. No ring, no rules. Watch us take the crown. No ring, no rules. We don't back down. No script, only nerve and skill. No leash, no chain, only what is real. From the first word out to the final roar. If you want a war, we give you more. No ring, no rules. We make our own way. No ring, no rules. Legend starts today. No ring, no rules. Watch us take the crown. No ring, no rules. We don't back down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the No Rings, No Rules podcast. We got a lot to talk about, and before we do, I'm going to bring somebody in here that has been a huge help for this podcast, and he's definitely brought the no limit to conversations and brought them up to the phenomenal level. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only, the controversial DJ Chaotic to No Rings, No Rules podcast.
What up, ladies and gentlemen? Hope you got your drinks, your snacks on standby, because this is about to be an epic show. I am DJ Chaotic, podcaster, eFed owner, you name it, I'll do it. At the end of the day, we got some things to discuss here, CJ.
We definitely do. And first of all, before we get into this, we got a lot to talk about. First of all, welcome to episode 7, the corporate era of wrestling, WWE TKO and what it means to the fans versus AEW Chris Jericho and the Ultimate Business Breakdown. This is all in this episode. So like DJ said, get your popcorn, get ready, because we're going to talk about everything here in No Ring, No Rules podcast. We are not going to be like other podcasts that pretty much do one show and then go to the other. We're going to do both sides to give you both sides of the content. So with that said, now we get into the introduction. Welcome to the comprehensive 4-hour masterclass layout for episode 7, No Rings, No Rules. This episode is structured to carry an extensive deep dive broadcasting covering the macroeconomics of modern pro wrestling, contrasting the corporate machines of TKO, WWE against the inventory-driven model of all elite wrestling, using Chris Jericho as a primary study for longevity, renovation, and cross-era relevance. Below is your complete time-stamped and we will complete talking points and specific analytic examples, comparison metrics, hitting hard discussions, and questions designed to keep listeners hooked for the minute 1 to the minute 240. This is going to be actually epic because I feel like that, this first, hour, we're not even the first hour, but boy, we getting on some classy hits here. It's like, being in a boxing match, you see two of your favorite boxers just slugfesting. Boy, this first thing that we're going to talk about here, I'm going to pull up, is definitely going to be like that boxing match as we get over to the TKO takeover and modern WWE corporate machine. There's a lot of things I could say personally about this, but getting on topic is the the financial and dominant Wall Street to this. I definitely want to now we get into the Wall Shift Street. Is this the introduction of this? And to be honest, here's where I literally say that WWE has become the Wall Street, and I'll explain why here in a minute. And I'm going to put this as scroll for a minute, so bear with me. So I'm fixing stuff up right now.
And as he's doing that, ladies and gentlemen, chime in the comment section if you're with us. Let us know how you feel about everything. Put your thoughts out there, and we'll feedback off of it.
Now, getting back to the introduction and the Wall Street shift, this is a huge thing for WWE. I'm going to talk about a couple things that I see here that I see that is a major key factor on the reason why they're becoming a corporate machine. And one of those things, personally, just look what they're doing with the money side of things with TKO. Back then, wrestling, shouldn't have been about the rich people. It should have been about the poor class families. It was made for all of us. Now it seems like that, they don't want it to be about all of us, not even the rich, the poor people. And here's where it affects WWE. I mean, not only are you losing your fan base to AEW, but you have the right to tell other podcasters that, don't talk about that subject. We want you to talk about this subject. That right there is really what gets to me the most. Like, if you're going to be about being a company and being about the fans, let the fans have intake on what they love. If they want to love AEW, then don't hate them because they love AEW because you feel like AEW is doing better than you. That is the biggest key that I see WWE doing. When AEW is doing something more better than them, they want to try to counteract it. There is a promo that Cody Rhodes done. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but there is a promo that Cody Rhodes done that he had to rethink creatively to fire back on MJF. In other words, Cody Rhodes said that he would drop his own nukes, referring, and if you've not really heard MJF's promo, basically, let me look this up for you and give you some good old tips here. While I'm doing that, I'll let DJ go over and tell you his side why he thinks that WWE is going to be the Wall Street shift.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of things I can say about this situation that really grinds my gears, per se. One, the money issue. WWE used to be affordable, used to be reasonable, used to be a very high commodity back then. Now, all of a sudden, it's all about the money, the greed, the what is going to be, the star factor for them. In most cases, you don't see your favorite being put over in most scenarios. You think just because you have these individuals means that they got to be the highlight of your show. That is not the case. I mean, let's just put this in primary perspective. What are you doing with the women's division? You have putting less focus on the women and more focus on the men because you think the men are going to be the high draw. Look at everything that happened. As we get to the segment. Go for it, Cody.
So here's the thing that I was telling you about the nuke thing. Cody Rhodes dropped his own promo talking about the nuke on one of the SmackDown episodes. But I want to get to the point where MJF said this. And this is a very good reason why WWE is taking everything from AEW, trying to use it in there just to cover their ass. And I don't get me wrong, I'm a huge WWE fan. Okay, I'm not taking up for AEW in any sort of way, but why
same here.
Why I just don't get it. Why are you trying to take creativity from somebody else because you feel entitled, like they are like trying to do better than you? And to me, it really don't make sense. Because somebody else is doing better, then you want to go ahead and hate on them. So before I get into any details here, let's go back and watch this AEW, the moment, the world's been waiting for, didn't disappoint. This is AEW Dynamite, November 11th, the 24th of 2021. Notice, this is when CM Punk was a part of AEW. So this has been a while back. This has almost been, 5 years ago?
Yep.
Almost 5 years ago. So take a good listen at this because this right here, and I do not own content to the video. As you can see, it's all Elite Wrestling. They own content and all that copyright on their channel. So I want you guys to take a listen to this. This is where I say that WWE is copying their storylines, and this right here, it really eats me to the core. Let's take a listen.
Doesn't feel so good getting interrupted, does it, Punky Brewster? Quite frankly, no. Quite frankly, you really hurt my feelings last week. I extended out my hand like a gentleman. And you really hurt my feelings, man. I mean, it was almost as bad as the time you quit, took your ball, and went home like a little bitch.
Now, going back to that promo, guys, I will say this. That's when CM Punk left WWE. Also, here's the thing that he's getting to that's going to be dropping nukes. But this is a very important thing I want you guys to listen to, so we're going to play the footage.
You know what was great, though? The pipe bomb. Everybody loves the pipe bomb, right, Chicago? Yeah, my God, so good. Legendary. what you would call a great promo, and I think it's fair to say, Punky, that the pipe bomb is your best moment. Except here's the problem, bud. Every MJF moment is the best MJF moment.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Because unlike you, I'm not a one-trick pony. And don't get it twisted, I respect you, man. I respect everything you've done. Hell, I even respect the fact that you're straight edge. Granted, never in my wildest dreams could I have possibly imagined a straight edge man could look so much like a meth addict. And it must be extremely difficult to be straight edge, considering if I had your face, I'd need to down 8 shots of whiskey just to look myself in the mirror. But you know what I can't respect, CM? Is how you've handled our little situation here. And you can pretend there isn't one, but there is. There is. You know, you would do all your quaint little interviews and they would ask you, who are some opponents you would like to go up against? And you would name every single wrestler underneath the sun, except for moi. Now you can pretend it's because you weren't interested, but in reality, it's because you didn't want none. And who can blame you, Punky? I mean, your whole entire career on the stick, you've been big fish, small pond, and standing across from me, you're just a freaking minnow. You didn't want to go toe-to-toe with me on the stick, punk? Well, too bad. Because I'm about to verbally finish you quicker than your UFC career. I heard you the first time. So check your watch, Papa Punk, because if you decide to retort, it won't say clobbering time. It'll say out of time. You can drop cute little pipe bombs all you want, because I'm MJF, and I drop nukes.
So did you hear that segment? He's MJF and he drops nukes.
See, here's the thing that I don't like about this. MJF thinks he's so good, but let's see how good he is if he was on the other foot in WWE. He would be embarrassed before he even got to where he is now. There are guys that are 10 times better promo-wise if I had to name the list. I mean, Shane Douglas does a better promo than MJF.
What I'm going to do at some
But let's keep it a buck. You don't see guys embarrassing whatever, okay? You don't see people in a feeling. MJF is just too cocky.
bit of CM Punk's down. Last Monday night, those negotiations.
How's your eye?
It looks a lot worse than it feels, but you didn't come out here to ask me about my eye, so what do you want to talk about?
I did not come out here to ask you about your eye, you're right. It's just funny because the last time we were standing in the ring, the situation mirrored it. You were talking to me, my eye was black, and I distinctly remember you saying championship opportunities that fall out of the sky. That's what happened Monday, right? A championship opportunity fell out of the sky, fell right in your lap. You caught it. There are those championship opportunities, and then there's championship matches that have been building for years.
Now, here's the biggest intake on this. Like, I just don't get the whole CM Punk scenario.
Let's get right to it. My opponent in the main event.
But before I play this, let's talk about this. I just don't get the fact. that Cody Rhodes said that championships opportunities would fall out of the sky. Okay, like, I get it. Sami Zayn's won the WWE title and he's took 10 years to get the championship. I get that. But why would you bury him against CM Punk that didn't win a number one contender match to deserve the title? And then you just, like, made Sami Zayn lose it, what, 9 days? Was it 9 days or maybe, what, 1 day after he won it?
9 days. The
9
night
days.
after he the couple of nights before Monday Night Raw, basically 9 days leading in to the night after Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia, he lost the title to CM Punk, all because they was in Chicago, Illinois. I mean, why are we handing out championship opportunities to guys that didn't deserve it? There should be the number one question everybody should have on their mind. WWE has been, building for a pay-per-view, but why are we putting CM Punk and Cody Rhodes in a match at SummerSlam this Saturday when, in all due seriousness, it should be the fact that CM Punk and that it should be Sami Zayn and Roman literally holding down the fort and trying to see who battles against Obafemi. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, but here's where I'm trying to get to the pipe bomb thing. I found it. It's this video.
You show people like me. You show people like all these people here tonight, people backstage. You show us there's another way, that there's a way out. I followed that damn promo to a T. You dropped a pipe bomb on the industry, and I went and did all those things. I dropped a nuke on the business. And we've talked about that. We've had that discussion. You know what I've never told you, though? Is I am well aware from the bottom of my heart that while I was doing that, they wished it was you every step of the way.
So getting back to that point, how ironic that those two things meet at the Wall Street. It's like you try to compete with AEW for what they did with the segment of MJF, and you turn it to the Cody Rhodes and CM Punk segment just to fire back on them because you're jealous of their success.
And here's the thing about it. That's the kicker part to this. Every time AEW does something creative, it feels like WWE is sitting behind the scenes taking every little note and using it to their advantage when who did the advantage first? AEW did. Every time you see a certain segment for anything, whether it's the men's, whether it's the women's, whether it's tag team, WWE is doing something to put them one step ahead of AEW. When, in all due seriousness, you've been biting AEW every step of the way. Just like I can say, how many times have you bitten a TNA segment in WWE? Case in point, you're not even utilizing TNA to the best of your advantage, WWE, all because you rather put your best foot forward to put your show ahead of everybody else. You've been burying companies like TNA, AEW, any indie promotion. You've been burying these companies for how many years now? All to put yourself as the forefront of wrestling. You can't do that. Sometimes in life, you have to think about the fans and what they want. This is what AEW does best over WWE.
Now, here's the thing that I'm going to ask, whether it's in live chat or, me and DJ. This is a very important question, and this is a discussion. And the discussion question is this: can a passion project promotion like AEW truly close their massive valuation gap against a public trademark multimedia
conglomeration
like TKO, or are they playing two entirely different sports?
Here's the thing that I'll say here. Looking at both things, AEW was built for the fans. AEW put their best foot forward for the fans. You want to know where WWE dropped the ball with the fans? The moment they signed the deal with TKO. And ever since TKO stepped in, they've been putting money ahead of the fans. That's the problem. You don't see WWE in this fan base perspective always putting the best foot forward for the fans, putting the fans' favorite wrestler or entity in the forefront. All you see is, what's the best bang for our buck? You never cared about the fans until you got with TKO. This is why a lot of people are siding with a TNA or AEW, because they're putting fan favorite matches first. And then every time we see a wrestler get released or whatever, why do they do so much better outside? Because their creative freedom is being seen. And that creative freedom is not there in WWE right now. This is why you lost interest. Look at who all is holding titles. This is part of the problem as well. The fans don't want to keep seeing constant runs of the bloodline. Fans don't want to see constant runs of Liv Morgan. Fans don't want to see constant runs of these champions. They want to see people put in a better perspective. Why do you think everything is going on?
Here's what I think about the whole thing, DJ. You're right about this, about the title portion. That is a good topic to talk about. Because, when I forgot who held the world title, I think it was CM Punk. He held the world title at WrestleMania against Roman. Lost it to Roman. Okay? We've not seen Punk until that, I think.
Until that show when they was in Chicago on Raw.
So, okay, in Raw, okay? So, you're telling me that you're letting Punk just automatically walk in and get a title shot beat Sami Zayn when there needed to be a storyline in place. You know, I can understand if CM Punk, you know, won a number one contendership, you know, and then him and Sami, you know, had a match at, you know, this coming pay-per-view that they had that was what, Night of Champions, if I'm guessing, or yeah,
it was after, it was before Night of Champions.
Well, pretty much if they had it at Night of Champions, then you could moved it to another segment. If you couldn't get it at Night of Champions, you could moved it to SummerSlam. But instead, what did you do? You had him to drop the title so Sami could lose. Then you had Cody Rhodes winning that match, which made no sense. Is like Cody's
the number one contender match.
It's no sense at all because Cody Rhodes has already had the championship. Then you go back to Roman, same thing with the world title. Why do you put titles on Roman, Punk, and Cody when there's newer stars out there that needs to be built up?
Like, you know, I'll give you some names that are primary reason one. Why have we not seen a Drew McIntyre back since he lost the championship at SmackDown? Why have we not seen Damian Priest get opportunities to hold the title? Why have we not seen women like Zelina Vega and so on and so forth win the championship? Why are we putting titles on Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton, and we've already seen them hold championships? This is part of the problem WWE has, because fans want to see, like, just like at Monday Night Raw tonight, why did we take the title off of Sol Ruka if y'all was going to make Sol Ruka a star, only to give the title to Raquel Rodriguez? Can anybody in the chat explain to me what did Raquel Rodriguez do to deserve having the Women's IC Championship? And she didn't earn an opportunity to get it. Why do we have a quote-unquote difference where MJF held the title for so long? It's like, why are we having people like this hold the title hostage? You don't earn fans by having people hold the title hostage. People want to see their favorite win. Why are we not giving guys like Braun Breaker opportunities to win championships like that? Why are we putting him with the tag team titles when he should be holding the world title? Just because Roman is there in WWE doesn't mean he's the see-all, be-all of the wrestling scene. And this is the problem the fans have. And I'm breaking this down in a point where podcasts have even came out and said, why are we not seeing these faces? When are y'all going to ever bring back Kevin Owens? Kevin Owens has been out of action for how many years since the WrestleMania he had the neck injury. And I understand neck injuries are very iffy when it comes down to healing. At the same time, you are making these makeshift champions and makeshift tag teams to think that these guys are being built for things of interest. When all due seriousness, you are literally holding these guys hostage from their creative freedom. What's the point of having Paul Heyman as a genius in WWE if his creative freedom ain't going to be seen for people of interest?
So here's the thing that I definitely want to get on topic here. I'm going to try to stay on topic. I'm going to answer this question first before we move on. Can a passion project promotion like AEW truly close a massive valuation gap against a public trade multimedia conglomerate like TKO and playing in two entirely different sports? The problem with this is that I see that is killing TKO is they taking everything that AEW does and try to rub it in their face, and the fans are starting noticing stuff. It's like you're making more fans mad that they don't even watch the product. I mean, myself, I unsubscribed from the ESPN app because I got tired of seeing the same old shit on a pay-per-view. I mean, at least be creative. Hire somebody that knows something that can, change the roadmap. Get Vince McMahon back instead of this TKO bunch that is killing your market. I mean, it's the truth.
And here's another truth to this whole bombshell that I'm throwing perspective. Let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen. You want to know what the problem with WWE is? It's literally one name. Ari Emanuel think he knows every damn thing about wrestling when you never step foot in the wrestling business at all. Stick to what you know, Ari Emanuel. You have literally killed WWE, and you are continuously doing it all for greed. You don't even know nothing about the business since you bought it from Vince McMahon. At least we can say Vince McMahon was and always will be the creative side of what made WWE what it is. What are you doing creative-wise to help WWE succeed? You're not succeeding nothing with the storylines you have given over these last few years. You killed it. You took the passion away from the fans, and this is why fans are going to AEW. This is why fans are looking at AEW's product more, and they are looking at this saying to themselves, WWE hasn't done a good creative storyline. You reverted back to storylines that didn't make no sense and why it's being killed.
Now, here's the thing that I want to get into. This is the reason why that I call the Wall Street shift. The business motivation. Why target AEW? Eliminating variables for Wall Street. When TKO backfired by an endeavor, merged UFC and WWE, leadership made it clear that growth were maximizing year were top priorities. Media analysts and industry insiders such as Dave Metzer have pointed out corporate entities in any compelling brand with a passion, dedicated audience as a variable. There's two things that they done that pretty much target AEW. The media rights factor. AEW secured lucrative television and streaming extensions with Warner Brothers Discovery. WWE corporate stakeholders want to ensure that AEW cannot grow its footprint, massive build audience gains, or secure higher rights fees in future cycles that will legitimize them as an equal corporate alternative. 2, reports that industry observers indicate that WWE prefers a landscape where smaller and more easily managed companies like TNA as a secondary promotion because its ecosystem can be collaboratively influenced with coexisting where AEW represents as an independent funded billionaire-backed threat. So in other words, with this TNA strategy, I can explain this better because I don't know anything about the media, but I know the TNA, why they did the TNA thing. DJ probably could explain the media side, but I can explain the TNA business strategy side. So I explain the TNA strategy side and let DJ explain the media side of this. But I'll go first. Reason why they want TNA, especially WWE want TNA close to them, is because they can get newer talent and use TNA and, you know, smaller companies as TNA like OVW, which is Ohio Valley Wrestling, to gain them talent. So they don't have to do anything. They can just sit back and watch, and anytime they want to take a talent, they'd be sitting back in their offices, be like, ooh, I want this guy, or yeah, I want this girl, or yeah, I want this tag team. You know, they don't have to do nothing. They got, you know, little companies they can go to and just start recruiting people. Not only that, but the reason why they're using TNA more for their side than AEW is because they want to pull away talent that has worked with AEW that is signed to TNA to their side. So in other words, it's kind of like a, you know, I don't know if you guys ever had to deal with like a puppet, or you got a puppet at home. You know, you have these strings that you can pull, right? And these strings, you can pull them anywhere you want them to move any part of ligament, like the knees, legs, arms, you know, etc., even the mouth. So in other words, WWE wants TNA to be their little puppet to literally gang them and work for them. But at the same time, they don't want TNA to work with AEW. They want to try to take away that business from AEW to cripple their marketing, to cripple their growth, to cripple their media. But at the same time, you got to look at it this way. WWE has been jealous over AEW. So, in other words, they don't like what AEW is doing, so they have somebody. Here's what I think. Now, I could be wrong because I don't have no insiders in this. I'm just guessing at this. But I think they have somebody that is they probably, more than likely, you know, don't hold me 100% to this. They're probably doing what we call spies. They have spies that sit around and watch, and literally, it's kind of like, you know, back in medieval days. I don't know if you guys know about like the Roman Empire. So if like two kings are going at it and they own different lands, right? So if they want to go to war and they need to find out how much army this one has compared to the other one, they send spies. So they would send somebody that, you know, fits in right perfectly, but at the same time, they stabbing that company in the back so they could pull information to WWE. That's what WWE is doing, in my opinion. I can't prove this, so don't hold me to this, but that's why I think they are targeting AEW and pulling their market growth. They are targeting their marketing because they don't want AEW to compete with them. That's why TKO is making it harder for AEW to do any business with TNA. So I'm going to share this comment with Dom Holmes, 1998. Triple H is the Jay-Z of WWE. He may be, but at the same time, I don't like how TKO's doing to WWE. Triple H is good in his position, but I just don't like the TKO thing. TKO is killing the business. It is killing fan bases. They are raising them ticket prices, which is outrageous. WrestleMania couldn't even get viewers in seat to break records. And to me, that really hurts as a fan, knowing that we've never will see record broken at WrestleMania or even their bigger stages. You know, the 4 big pay-per-views, which is WrestleMania, then you got Survivor Series, then you got Royal
Rumble,
and
SummerSlam.
SummerSlam. They're big 4. But I'll let DJ touch up on the media side, the media rights factor, why he thinks that they are targeting AEW with the media. So, DJ, you have the floor.
Now, this is where I'm going to start the whole scenario here. Let's take into consideration this. Look at TKO right now. Media-wise, you have stations like NBC Universal. You have literally all these Peacock. You have the Paramount side, which has their Paramount Plus and whatever stations Paramount owns. At the same time, look at what Paramount just purchased. They just got their hands on Warner Brothers Discovery. Warner Brothers Discovery has AEW. And why do you think it's so difficult for AEW to succeed if they go under the Paramount umbrella now, you're going to be competing with rights to AEW and to WWE and UFC, which is under the which UFC has everything under the Paramount WWE. Why do you think Warner Brothers Discovery has been sitting back saying to themselves, we rather value WWE now, and why do you think there is less value for AEW? Because WWE is trying to step in to shut down the AEW, just like WWE did WCW. They don't like competition. And that old saying holds volumes. Healthy competition in sports brings fans together. While we look at this as a standpoint, the media's rights is so heavily favored in WWE. Look at what WWE has done. They are trying to book arenas ahead of AEW booking that arena. Why do you think we never seen AEW in Madison Square Garden? Madison Square Garden even said this in a press release that we would never give our arena to AEW because we hold way more value with WWE than AEW. Think about that from a standpoint there. Because in most cases, why do you think AEW is getting in smaller booked arenas while WWE is getting these big value arenas ahead of AEW? The bidding war ain't favoring AEW as much as it does WWE.
Here's the thing that I love about Don. He actually tells it the truth, and DJ, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is a huge truth factor to this. Shout out to you, Dom. Terrible fact. It's a terrible time to be watching wrestling, WWE in particular. AEW is just taking care of business by bringing in professional wrestling as it should be, and that right there is the reason why
that's a big fact.
You are getting a shout out because you told the truth about AEW is bringing in the wrestling portion. You know, that I get the celebrity thing. They brought celebrities in that didn't really make pull, and I get that. You know, WWE is not doing nothing for the business bringing these celebrities in. They need to bring these wrestlers that can fill those seats, that can work as a worker. And what I mean as a worker is that can fill those seats and bring money revenue into it as AEW is doing. But DJ, didn't mean to interrupt you. You can go ahead and continue where you left off.
Now, I'm going to give you prime example one. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the rapper Westside Gunn from Griselda. Look at what WWE has done to a man like Westside Gunn, a man that has been a focal point wrestling fan. And trust me when I say this, ladies and gentlemen, I have followed Westside Gunn. He's a diehard wrestling fan. He does music on wrestling. But at the same time, WWE spit in this man's face. They didn't even allow him to enjoy a show that was in my hometown, all because he paid a hefty amount of money. And that same money, he didn't even get back, and he got kicked out of the arena before the show even began. AEW, on the other hand, has allowed Westside Gunn to appear at his show, front row, and they gave this man way more credibility than WWE. And I feel like TKO is not doing what they need to do for the fans that really are die-hard wrestling fans. That same courtesy. Why are we giving it to boxers? Why are we giving it to UFC personnel? They never sit there and say, oh, this person over here is a diehard wrestling fan. This fan is telling you, oh, these stars are doing way better, but you rather put these guys under the bus because of X, Y, and Z reasons. And good thing, Dom, you said that. The attitude era and ruthless aggression era will always hold more value than today's standard.
I definitely agree with DJ. This guy's, got it way. His wrestling, information and knowledge way intact, and there's a reason why that going back to the attitude era and ruthless aggression era. There's a reason why from, you take the Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin, from John Cena, there's a reason why that those two sold out arenas and WWE was big back then, because they knew how to put people in seats. Compared to today's wrestlers like Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, not really subject touching for my podcast. That's how you know that you can tell when wrestlers know how to sell the product. And what I mean by selling the product, not only selling the moves, but also selling the product where people's enjoying, wrestling as it should be, as, he said before, with AEW taking care of a business standpoint as wrestling should be, but also selling those seats to get people money and everything else that they need to build up that company for the future. But go ahead, DJ. Didn't mean to cut you off.
But here's the biggest thing that I'm going to say right now. Ever since they brought this man to the table, where the fuck has he been now to help the business? And I'm referring to one man that we all know and love, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Where has he been in this whole scenario? Where has this man been to help WWE be creative? You are sitting on the TKO board and you have done nothing to build or help succeed the guys that should be in position. But why are we so forcibly seeing people like Nia Jax, Lash Legend be buried under the TKO WWE umbrella? Why are we seeing people like Jade Cargill be a focal point over names like Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair being buried? Damn near a host of names that I can mention. Why are we seeing Toxic Attraction get more attention than a wrestler that you kicked under the bus? Why are we seeing you bury Nikki, the Bella Twins, and Paige since they returned to some extent? Because, you don't value these names? Then why did you bring them back into the forefront? Why are we seeing names like Logan Paul get way more publicity than names that should be mentioned? I mean, and this is another thing that's the kicker part to all this. Why are we forcing a pay cut to wrestlers that should be on television, but you're not giving them the opportunity to be on television? Case in point, why did we kick the New Day to the curb? Why did we kick Aleister Black to the curb? Why did we kick a name like Zelina Vega to the curb? Why are we not seeing names like Julia be spotlighted? Greed. You rather have the bloodline be the see-all, be-all of professional wrestling. You rather have a name like Jacob Fatu, who was built off the indies, be under Roman Reigns' umbrella? Come on now. Solo Sikoa, who should be focal point, but you want to put him in a situation with LA Knight and you're burying Royce Keys, who had a better opportune moment in AEW than he is now in WWE? Why are we not using names like Johnny Gargano? Why are we not seeing Candice LeRae in big moments? Why do we see these names getting buried backstage?
Going back to the Don Holmes here, he brings this out. He said, whose dumb idea was this to come out with a documentary, Unreal? Wrestling has been exposed in the most awful way. I agree, because here's why. Back then, when Vince ran it, there was no cameras behind the scene what was going on. So I definitely agree with that statement because of this. If you take cameras and show behind the scenes, what do you think the fans are going to know, as far as like going to the show? Now you pull the cameras behind the scenes telling what happens. Now you expose the business, which means now you pretty much, in a way, disrespected every legend that you put in the Hall of Fame because you took the cameras back there and told the backstage segment of the stories that was not supposed to be behind closed doors. It should have been, right in front, and kept the closed doors to confidentiality. Definitely agree with that right there. And another thing I agree with is this: the bankruptcy era. That's why all the pay cuts came about. This is the reason why they're losing all their stars, because they can't pay them. Major key factor there. But DJ, continue. Go ahead, brother.
Now, here's one thing that I'll touch on, and then I'll get back to what I was going to say. The whole Unreal scenario. Think about why WWE is doing the Unreal scenario. Think about what AEW did, and I forgot the name of the show that AEW did. They bit off of what AEW did because, they think Unreal was the CRBR. When AEW did it first, they've allowed their fans to see their favorites in a different perspective. There's a reason why Unreal is so bull in a way, because Unreal literally should not be a thing. There's a thing that in wrestling, the rings, the backstage portion should be sacred. And that sacred thing has now been put on the forefront by TKO because, we need to let our wrestlers be seen. We need to let the backstage scenario be seen. You're giving away everything because of this. That same reason is why we don't like WWE's product today. That same passion that we have as wrestling fans. Where's the unpredictability? Where's the surprise? Where's the mystery? That's what's missing in WWE right now. Because y'all think celebrities are this big focal point that why do we need a Jelly Roll? Why do we need a Ryan Garcia? Why do we need a X, Y, and Z factor? The wrestlers should be the focal point, not the celebrities. That's where we are missing the narrative. Because y'all want to see wrestling as it should be. That's why AEW is doing better than WWE. And TKO, if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would get his head out of his ass and start putting more emphasis into wrestling, maybe we would see something. But you want to know where it all died? The moment WWE signed to Netflix. Netflix is what's killing wrestling. Wrestling was built off television stations alone. And there's the reason why we don't see WWE as being the dominant factor, because when we used to watch wrestling back in our day, we tuned into USA Network. We tuned into a NBC. We tuned into wherever it was being seen. The product has been devalued to these streaming platforms, like a ESPN Plus, like a Netflix. This is the reason why WWE is losing so many fans, because of streaming platforms. Streaming platforms is killing everything now. And I know CJ would agree with me on this when I say it. Why do you think a lot of people don't like to watch the pay-per-views right now as a whole on streaming platforms than they do pay-per-view? Pay-per-view is what built wrestling.
Yep.
Pay-per-view is what built the whole foundation to draw your fan base in. People would pay $50 to $60 for a pay-per-view. Nowadays, people are paying $70, $75 to $80 for a pay-per-view that ain't giving them everything they want. And you wonder why wrestling is dying now. They missed the mark because of streaming platforms. Streaming platforms is killing the product. You were better off staying under the WWE network, which brought you more fan base than the streaming platforms. And I know you would agree with me on that, CJ.
Yep.
And it's like the competition factor. If I can say the line that Cody Rhodes said, WWE should not be a corporate conglomeration. AEW was built for the fans, by the fans. While WWE is sitting back here saying to themselves, oh, we don't value the fans. We value the money over the fans. This is what's killing the product. Because you don't have nobody in WWE right now saying, oh, the focal point should be with us, the fan base. The fan base should have the final say on who gets pushed over, this, that, and the third. This is why podcasts like JD from NY206 and Dave Meltzer and Jim Cornette bring so much value, and why they are destroying every little inch of why WWE is dying. Shout out to these guys and the fans that are pointing it out there, obviously, because this is what's missing. The fan aspect is missing in today's product. And all due respect to those individuals out there that are keeping it real, and they rather shut us down because, oh, we're not saying this, that, and the third about why this segment is bringing so much value. But at the same time, we are bringing you something that should be highly noted in the long run. Streaming platforms is killing the viewership. Why do you think ever since AEW been staying on TNT and TBS, they've been getting more value than a Netflix and ESPN platform? Streaming is what's killing a lot of things now. And I'll let you take it over from there.
Now we get on the historical timeline and real-world counter-programming examples. WWE targeting of AEW is not random. It's evolved from developmental counter-programming to direct man roster conflict. We look at example A, AEW Dynamite 2019 to 2021. The context when AEW launched in October 2019 on TNT, WWE immediately moved its developmental brand NXT to a USA network on Wednesday nights in the same 8 p.m. time slot. The objective of this is to choke off AEW's initial momentum, siphon potential viewers, signal to television executes that Wednesday nights belong to WWE umbrella. AEW ultimately won the ratings in that time slot, prompting NXT to move to Tuesdays in April 2021. Example B, the 2025 pay-per-view Clash Wave. WWE stepped up its aggression by positioning major events directly opposite from AEW's biggest weekends. the 2025 Clash, when AEW scheduled its Martic International Stadium-style event All In at the Global Live Field in Arlington, Texas. WWE responded by booking a stacked weekend Saturday night's main event on July 12th in the revival of Evolution Premium Live event on July 13th at State Farm Arena in Atlanta. Then we got the September 2025 Clash. AEW scheduled its traditional all-out pay-per-view, forcing a logical scramble when WWE announced the launch of WrestlePalooza on ESPN the exact same date and time. This forced AEW to shift All Out to an early afternoon start time to avoid head-to-head collision on an online broadcast streams. And then the last example for this is holiday scheduling and retirement tours. Industry reports WWE that highlighted that WWE weighed moving high-profile year-end shows such as marquee blocks on Saturday night's main event calendar featuring development retirement tour matches against AEW's end-of-year World's End pay-per-view. The objective of such scheduling is simple: dilute the buy rate, spill the internet wrestling community's attention, and starve the competition of high-profile media chatters. With them three right there, especially with the NXT, you know they in conflict. I mean, this is like watching WCW and Monday Night Wars, all over again with the war ratings. WWE knows that all of its viewers is going to AEW because they ain't got nobody over their creative structure, which means, going back on Dom's thing here, I'm going to share out. Imagine The Rock handling a creative WWE. It'd be a whole different than what's being viewed right now, but Triple H has a problem with being cohesive in his own screen competition. This is the reason why that I think that WWE is failing, because they expect Triple H to lead somebody when, I don't really see that this is this needs to be Triple H in general. I think that, they got a lot of good people for the position that could lead head of creative. I think one of them, especially that could lead WWE creative, is The Rock. But at the same time, you got Axe and Smash, Demolition. That's a good, guys that could, literally take some guys and lead them in the right way. You got Rock and Roll, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, another good tag team that could do something with these younger guys. Not only that, you look at Ric Flair. Put Ric Flair in there. Yeah, Ric Flair is 16-time world champion, but that dude, he may be 80 years old, but that dude still can take a bump and make it look better than what WWE's putting on television. I mean, this is the God's honest truth. And to me, the historical times and real-world encounters, this programming examples, is to show you why this is a business war. This will always be a business war between these two companies because AEW feels like that it's the next big commodity. And WWE sees that they are a target because AEW is stepping up to the programming, with talent, booking relations, whatever it needs to be done. And we are seeing, two companies clash. It's kind of like, an old example. You put two people that, especially if it's got a girlfriend into it, everybody, it's two big guys going at it over this girl, okay? They're going to fight over what's between that girl's legs. You're going to have a slugfest, right? So same thing what AEW and WWE is doing, except the girl is the money portion of this. They fighting over the money, the fan base, they getting into it. And this is where I can see it is a big problem for the industry, especially WWE. If you lose the fans, how are you going to revenue the money? That is a good question. If you're losing the fans over to AEW, how are you going to come up to pay for these bigger arenas? How are you going to come up to pay for, you got to think of, you got to put your common sense into this at some time. Just because you are a big multimedia global phenomenon is what they call themselves, but now that structure is fallen because we can see the cracks. This is like a whole WCW thing going all over again. And you got AEW that's just sweeping them out. I mean, you take a good look at the match. I don't know if anybody has seen this match. Chris Jericho versus Tommaso Ciampa. That was at Bash at the Beach, or Beach Bash.
That was the Redemption pay-per-view that just took place.
Beach Bash. Because you look at Chris Jericho, especially, I think it was one that you was talking about, the Redemption pay-per-view. When Chris Jericho took that drill and drilled it right on top of Tommaso Ciampa's forehead, that was the creative storyline that they had compared to WWE. You don't see WWE doing some crazy stuff like that. That's why I love AEW, because AEW gets in more detail. They go more advanced to their storylines compared to WWE. Now, it's just the same old shit it's Roman Reigns says it best. I'm going to quote Roman Reigns here. It's like missionary position over and over and over again. It's getting done and repetitive.
And here's the one thing that I'm seeing that is a huge downfall factor. And I'm going to bring this moment to perspective. Let's put this out there for the fans to know. Who was the main one in WWE that revolutionized the women's division? And I'll give you two names. Stephanie McMahon held it down. And not only that, behind the scenes, Fit Finlay brought that women's division to a whole new landscape in WWE. Now, looking at the women's division now, AEW is utilizing their women 100% better than WWE, because guess what? What's that old saying that Vince McMahon had when he saw the women's division? Nothing more than eye candy. He's utilizing the women to bring the viewership. Same thing that's going on now. TKO is utilizing the women as eye candy. Oh, you dressed a woman in this way. Oh, we got the fan hook, line, and sinker. We'll let the men do the damage. At the same time, AEW is saying we're not utilizing our women as eye candy. We're utilizing them as wrestlers. That same concept of wrestlers, why do we have in WWE, oh, we're not referring to them as wrestlers. We refer to them as superstars. That whole superstar concept is so dull and outdated. This is why the superstar perspective can't be viewed as real in WWE. You are killing a generational talent like Natalya, aka Natty, to being more of a backstage person now, and she ain't even getting utilized well in Raw or SmackDown. Why do we have to utilize her in NXT and Evolve? This is the problem. Names that should be utilized, you're not capitalizing on them. Because you rather value the women as eye candy. That's the problem that I'm seeing in the standard. All these women that you have, Thea Hale is getting a bigger break in TNA than she is in WWE. Damn near, you're not even capitalizing on the fuck is her name? Jada Parker, because you're not building her correctly. But you rather bring up a name, you rather bring Lola Vice up to SmackDown only for her to be buried under names that you rather see more better than Lola Vice.
Now we get into.
I'm just tired of it.
We getting into this topic too because I feel like that this is going to hit the whole perspective of what DJ's trying to say. The contrast. I hope it pops up.
It did.
Business monitoring, feuding the war. And the metric, we're going to take it into 4 metrics here. We're going to look at the financial backing. You got WWE versus AEW. You got WWE as TKO error, which is Wall Street publicly traded marinated. Then you got AEW, which is a privately held family-backed company. The ticket strategies to these, both these two, we're going to start off with WWE. Dynamic pricing, maximizing yield per seat, pushed by the corporate leadership like Mark Shapiro. Then on AEW side, deliberately kept family-friendly and accessible to preserve to live the fan base. Then product philosophy, polished Hollywood-style sports entertainment, strict corporate creative parameters. Then that's for WWE, of course. Then you got AEW, which is alternative sports first model focused on work rate, indie crossovers, and talent creative freedom. Did you get that correctly? Don made a good point about AEW, and let me go back to that. And this is why. He said this here, right here. Let me go back and read this again. AEW, for their product philosophy, alternating sports models, sports first model, focus on work rate, indie crossovers, and talent creative freedom. He says the same thing, but only in different words. Look at this AEW part because I'm going to read it. AEW is taking care of business by bringing in professional wrestling as it should be. Same thing as what they saying. AEW is bringing creative freedom and crossover work from the indies and focuses on the work rate. That's why AEW is more successful by them booking shows. DJ made a valuable point too. They using their women wrestlers as wrestlers and not as eye candy. And in other words, it's the same damn, and I'm sorry that I'm going to say this. If you got kids, please keep your kids away from the podcast as I say this. But this is the same damn thing Vince did with WWE. And Vince actually done it better. But at the same time, it's time to take out that old school crap, come in with the new school and try to work something out because you guys are being like WCW, which means you guys are going to fall. We already know how history repeats itself. So going at the same time of this, as AEW is winning this war ratings, now they are making the work rating, indie crossover, and talent freedom. They giving talent their creative freedom, which means they can do anything with their gimmicks and not come back after a match and get them bashed over because they done that. We look at a lot of them. WWE has pretty much not even gave that creative freedom. It's whatever they want and you're going to go with, or there's a door.
And this is the problem.
Which is sad.
This is the problem that is so criticized with WWE. Why do we have to have names like Roman Reigns, The Bloodline, a CM Punk, a Liv Morgan? Why are we not seeing them bring us more Alexa Bliss? Why are we not seeing them bring a name like Jada Parker? Why are we not seeing these names be more focal points, or Thea Hale? Why are we not seeing these names get more value? But they get more value in a AAA or in an indie show that they go to in general. Why have we not seen these names get more creative freedom? Because guess what? TKO says, Roman Reigns is bringing in the money. Cody Rhodes is bringing in the money. Why do we have to see the same faces over and over again before you get the memo of, these names that are getting less time are bringing in the more value? And this is why I can't see WWE as a whole right now because you're killing your product. You think just because you have Triple H, you are killing Triple H's vision of what he sees. And I think they are sabotaging Triple H behind the scenes with nothing of interest to the fans. TKO is killing everything Triple H has done since he's been in that creative process. Like, you are also killing Shawn Michaels as we know it in NXT. Let's just put this in perspective. You had to move your show to a Tuesday night just to say, oh, we get better ratings on a Tuesday night than we did a Wednesday night going head to head with AEW. Just like, oh, you would put your show an hour in advance on Friday night, SmackDown, to say, oh, we get more eyes on our product than when AEW Rampage came on at 10. Oh, they could have the 10 o'clock spot. They ain't going to get no viewership over us.
Getting back on the topic before we move on to the next one is the primary objective, WWE continuous margin expansions and shareholder satisfaction, and AEW long-term sustainability and providing a viable wrestling art alternative. So going back to create and control versus corporate structures, I want to touch on this too. The intersection of corporate structures and creative control is a battleground for modern professional wrestling. When a public traded conglomerate with a multi-billion-dollar valuation owns a wrestling product, the fundamentals nature of how storylines are written, who gets pushed, and how talent is utilized shifts entirely. Now we get on to the TKO WWE model of corporate-led creative. And before we get on that, with this right here, I think this is a valuable part on what we bring to the table here. And I'm trying my best to get this. So the TKO WWE model, corporate-led creative. This is why it's a huge factor. Now, going back to the comments, I seen where Brosky puts this. Only creative freedom they gave was Bray Wyatt. After he passed away, they stopped it. TKO is stupid. They doing their favoritism with certain stars that brings money in. WWE ain't about money. Ain't about money. They're about wrestling and treating their stars right.
Bingo. Bingo. Thank you, Brosky, for that. That holds volumes.
But here's the thing. Here's why I say they about the money too, is because they done a thing. I think it was under the Pro Wrestling Crates that it had like a main event box, tag team box, and you paid like $20, $30, to get like a picture, t-shirt, and a collectible item, I think, into that box. They doing the same thing with the WWE club. It's like, okay, you didn't come up with that when Pro Wrestling Tees done it, but now you want to come up with it because now you need money, especially for TKO's side with Emmanuel and Mark Shapiro with their overseeing with the TKO group, which they are now currently in business with UFC that's not pulling the money. That right there is a huge creative factor, because why are you using wrestling to pull money for MMA when you knew better when you started buying the UFC, knowing that you was going to get yourself in debt because Paul, or what's his name, DJ, help me out, Dana White was not pulling the money out of the UFC in the MMA, because he went to the same business of TKO people, and they are doing the same thing with UFC, what they do to WWE, trying to make a UFC contract out of wrestling. When I think in all reality is these wrestlers need to be paid more than MMA stars because they do more to put their body at risk than MMA. MMA, you're in the cage, you're fighting, one opponent, each night. WWE, you could be in a Hell in a Cell, steel cage, even a Money in the Bank ladder match, and you're fighting up to, 4, 5, 8 guys at least, and potentially getting hurt on and need medical bills paid for. Because if you blow your ACL, that costs us a lot of money to even get a doctor, to even get, surgery if you have to repair that knee over that torn ACL, or, whatever the case may be, you need money for that. So huge factors come into play with the business war here.
And here's another thing that I'll throw out there that is a huge factor with this whole thing. AEW, they have all expenses paid for flights, hotel, you name it. TKO, you wonder where their money is? Oh, they don't want to use their money to treat the wrestlers to hotels, flight accommodations, all that. They rather have the wrestler pay for the expense for all those things. And there's the problem.
Now, we're getting back to the WWE portion because I want to touch on WWE before we go to AEW, so we're on one topic. With the WWE model corporate-led creative, under TKO's group holdings overseen by Ariel Emanuel and Mark Shapiro, WWE operates like a high-yield media conglomerate and tech agenda properties such as its multi-year global partnership with Netflix. You got 3 things. You got the ultimate authority, the Sin Energy mandate, and the fan trade-off. We're going to start with the ultimate authority. While Paul Triple H Levesque maintains the day-to-day oversight as a chief content officer, top TKO executives reign compete legal and operational control. TKO's leadership has acknowledged they ultimately hold the ultimate authority to inject corporate synergy into television. We've seen that with, pay-per-views especially. The Sin Energy mandate. Corporate control means televising is utilizing to drive cross-platforms promotions, corporate partnerships, and mainstream visibility. High-profile examples such as shoehorning mainstream live media figures or sports personalities like ESPN contributors into premium championship angles are driven by executive mandates to boost ticket sales, satisfy partner medias, and capture broad demographics. Then we off to the fan trade-off. As TKO President Mark Shapiro noted regarding an aggressive marketing and mainstreaming integration, these tactics are designed to maximize overall revenue and brand footprint, even if hardcore fans are occasionally pushed back against corporate influence, overriding long-term traditional storytelling. So basically, they've taken out the hardcore stuff and doing what they want to do. While AEW is giving us hardcore, good example of this, Tommaso champion Chris Jericho. They went back to back with the hardcore scenes. I mean, my goodness, you take a drill to somebody's head and literally, good thing that he was able to literally hold the drill, away so Chris Jericho can't go fully into his skull. But at the same time, the drill was right there where his head is, and Chris Jericho was like tearing flesh with that drill. But at the same time, that was storytelling. It was pretty much a hardcore environment, kind of like watching ECW. WWE didn't want to do that with their product. They're like, oh, you can't do that on our television. You can't do this while you're under our product. It's here's the thing. I understand what DJ's trying to say. I understand what DJ's trying to say. He's saying, and I'm going to go in his mind here, so don't think I'm a mind genie, but here's what I'm thinking he's saying to this. WWE has taken out the hardcore fan bases because they don't want us to see what we want as fans. That covers that topic, but I will let DJ get onto that as we go on to the AEW module side of things. If DJ's wanting to put anything for TKO and WWE module before we change over to AEW.
Now, here's the one thing that I'm going to say here. Look at the big difference here. TKO is thinking, okay, 5 to 6 matches is perfect for our structure. at the same time, look at what AEW is doing. 9, 10, maybe 11 matches at a pay-per-view. They're saying, oh, the more matches, the more eyes is on us. Look at the difference here. They're bringing you the hardcore aspect. They're bringing you a lot of what the old WWE narrative was for the women. Not only are we letting you have fun, but also we're giving you women's talent at its finest. While TKO is sitting back saying, okay, we're not going to give you everything that you want at the same time. Why are we giving you a 2-night event when AEW is giving you 1 night and everything is on the table? Everything should not have to be structured for the best result. AEW is giving you something that is holding more volume and putting more eyes on the product. Why do you think guys like Swerve Strickland feel more comfortable in an AEW structure than he was in the WWE structure? Because WWE was not giving these people the creative freedom. Why do you think Sasha Banks just up and left WWE for no apparent reason? Same thing with Naomi. But we are not getting names like Naomi. We're not getting names like a Drew McIntyre. We're not getting a Kevin Owens. These names are solely missed in the TKO structure that when are we going to ever see these names come back into the forefront? Oh, and the fact of the matter is this. TKO wants to diminish the dark personality. Why are we getting rid of the dark personality for? I don't see the point. Like, look at what the hell they did to the Wyatt Six. You killed the Wyatt Six narrative as a whole. And why? Oh, Bray Wyatt doesn't mean much to TKO like he was under Vince McMahon. The Wyatt Six should have been the focal point. But, hey, who am I to judge the scenario at hand? I can only evaluate on what I've seen. And they've killed so much in so little time. But why? Why do we think less is more important? We are supposed to be a wrestling company. Give us the wrestling. We don't need entertainment on a constant basis. That's what's killing TKO. Look at the fact of UFC events now. They're not feeling the same because Dana White has lost the interest because of Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro. Because they want to have Brian Gertwich come in to take over Triple H's spot to be creative, and they think Brian Gertwich is going to do something better than what Triple H is doing. These 3 names have no significant value to wrestling at all, mind you. But these 3 names is what's killing WWE right now. And we're going to the next topic.
So now we're going to this next topic. This is going to be a good topic. I kind of feel like this topic needs to be talked about. Going over to the AEW module to this, and this is going to be the 5th one that we talk about here. So I'm going to put number 5 on this. And this is going to be a huge topic because this is my personally favorites why I love AEW as a fan. You guys, like I said, you guys express how you feel in the chat. That's how you feel. You know, we ain't going to argue but we're going to get along as adults and be honest of what we like. That's why I invented this podcast, because I want everybody to express how they feel. Some podcasters, they don't really do that. They just, it's one-sided, and they don't do the both sides of the things. My podcast is different. I'm going to go into both sides of the business, compare and differ. Getting into this, we're going to start talking with the AEW module. In contrast, All Elite Wrestling, AEW operates under a structure where creative control is decentralized and deeply tied to an alternate sports-first philosophy. The ownership difference, creative work, rate focus, and downside of freedom. That's the three things that AEW does with their, entrepreneur and talent-centric creative. So we're going to get in with the ownership difference. Backed by a privately wealth through Tony Khan, AEW does not answer to quarterly Wall Street earnings calls or public shareholders demanding continuous margin expansions. Creative freedom and work rate focus. AEW's infrastructure places heavy and sympathizing on bell-to-bell in-ring action, long-term athletic rivalries, and establishing talent broad creative latitude over their promotions, characters, and match pacing. The downside of freedom. Without a strict down-topic corporal filter streaming every segment for mass marketing consumptions, this promotion can occasionally face challenges with roster bloat, unstructured televised pacing, and a balanced and enormous talent rosters across limited weekly program slots. To me, why the WWE and AEW module, the complete difference of this, TKO is more of a stark market growth. AEW's, pretty much over creative freedom. And I'll explain why I named the two the way they are. WWE only cares about money, and they don't really care about the fans, what we think, what we want is best for business. It's basically whatever, they feel entitled that they can do, they're going to get by with it because they want the money value in it, even though that, we are pretty much just money people to them. It's pretty much like they were telling us, oh, if you pay money, you get to see this. Or if you pay money, you get to see that. Or, if you pay money, you get to, have a, what they call a meet and greet with your favorite wrestlers, which I think that is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard in professional wrestling. If you are a fan and want to see a wrestler or take a picture, you should be able to. I think that is going to be a major factor why a lot of people moves away from WWE to go to AEW, because not only the creative freedom, but also AEW does not have the wrestlers contracted through where it's like, okay, first of all, let's say if I owned a company and Broski owns a company and DJ's my talent here. It's like I'm telling DJ, okay, DJ, you cannot take a picture with a fan before the show starts or after it ends, after you're get ready for the next flight. That's how WWE is. And to me, it really hurts because, I love WWE and definitely want to have a wrestling collection to where I can show to my kids, even if I have kids later on down the road. But at the same time, you got to look at it as a compare and different scenario between the two. WWE, just because you want to get a picture or an autograph doesn't mean you're going to get one, because unless you have money or you are a big, celebrity or, big name that, or in their little group, you're not going to get a picture with your favorite stars. And I think this is the reason why it's hurting the business. AEW is different. They don't control their talent to tell them, okay, if a fan asks for a picture, it's up to them if they want to do it. And I think WWE should do the same thing. If a fan is wanting a picture with one of their stars, I think it should be left up to the star saying, yes, I'll go out and take a picture, or no, I won't go out. That's where it needs to be. You don't need to control people and telling them what to do and then pretty much just don't even do it. Like, pretty much just control people to where it's like, it's like to that thing that, nobody wants to watch wrestling because they can't take a picture with their favorites. And you're pretty much making it like, it's about the money and the controlling dictator structure is what I'm going to call it. And before we move on to this, and before I turn it over to DJ and he can explain why he thinks that, you know, these three are major factors for AEW is crucial to him and why is it important to him. Before we get on to that, I definitely want to top in another topic I notice AEW is doing different that is killing WWE. They are strategically being smart on how they invest and look for talent. WWE is trying to cripple them by, you know, taking away businesses like I said, like, you know, TNA, good example of that. AEW is pretty much working with everybody. They're working with Ring of Honor. They're working with, I think New Japan. I could be wrong, but I know they're working with Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor, you know, it's brought some good names. You know, you look at the Briscoe brothers. You had, what was his name? Mark and Jay, I think, is their two names.
Jay and Mark Briscoe.
Yeah, Mark Briscoe and Jay Briscoe. Two of the very biggest tag team names that came out of the Ring of Honor. Another name I'm going to bring up, Will Ospreay, one of my favorites. He's doing good right now in AEW. Then you have Chris Jericho. You had MJF. You had Kenny Omega, which I think now he's the AEW champion, if I can say so. Or did he win the AEW title?
Kenny Omega is currently the AEW champion.
Yeah. I want to make sure, you know, that I'm going with this because I've not got to watch AEW in a while. But last time I checked, he was the AEW champion. I want to make sure that I got caught up to date with DJ. But going back on this is crucial, you know. And now I'm going to turn it over to DJ to explain why the AEW module entrepreneur and talent-centric creative, especially with those three, with the ownership difference, creative freedom and work rate focus and down freedom is so important to AEW and the fans, and why it's so crucial not only to the fans but also what it means for the fans. So DJ, you got the floor.
So here's the scenario that I've seen over time. I mean, you look at an event like WWE World, your biggest event before WrestleMania. Why are we having a price point to meet and greet wrestlers of $500, $600, or $700 when AEW has been doing a price point of, I don't know, about $60, $50 to say the least, because we can let you meet our wrestlers and not give you a hefty price point of a high value, all because X, Y, and Z factor ain't as important, you know? At the same time, AEW is giving affordable families something to seek at the end. And I'd rather value affordable pricing than expensive luxury. And this luxury is killing everything TKO sees. Let's look back at the events where you lost so much interest. I mean, you're not even seeing an interest in ticket sales for this year's SummerSlam, all because of the pricing. Your Royal Rumble you had in Toronto, the same thing happened. You couldn't bring fans in. This is why you bought the Rocket. And I'm like, at the point of, it is not hitting the same because of these conflicts of interest. So I don't know what TKO needs to do to raise the value, but it's going to hurt big time that we're not seeing everything like it should. And I'll turn it over to you, CJ.
Now we get on something. Now we get on something that is the major key factor here, and that's the clash corporation metrics versus the art of wrestling. And this is why this is so important. I'm going to put this up here real quick. The corporate metrics versus the art of wrestling. Why is this so important, you might ask? The friction between corporate structures and creative boils down to two entirely definitions of success. So it boils down to two definitions of success. You got the metrics, primary goal, handling talent and stories, response to fan backlash. We're going to start with corporate structure, TKO, with primary goals. Shareholder values, global media rights, predictable quarterly revenue, and mainstream crossover. Then you look at AEW's primary goal, cultivating a passionate hardcore fan base, athletic work rate, and long-term in-ring storytelling. Then we go down to handling and stories with the talent and stories. WWE and TKO side, the characters and storylines are asset managed for maximum global licensing value and corporation brand alignment. Then you got, which is talent, handling talent and stories, which is for AEW, talent often acts as a co-creators of their own trajectories, relying on independent style, equity, and creative autonomy. Then we go to respond to fan backlash. Viewed through a macro lens, if a global streaming metrics, ticket yieldings, and partnership revenue rises, vocal peerless backlash is treated as a localized minority. Compared to AEW's highly response to live crowd sentiments and internet wrestling community feedbacks due to a reliance ticking by pursuists. So now, why is this all important? You know, for WWE and TKO, DJ, for their primary goals, their handling and stories, and respond to fan backlash. Why is it important for two of those companies? And why do you think that AEW is succeeding more on the backlash to fans than WWE is? You got the floor.
Now, I'm going to give you prime example one. Tony Khan as a whole. Tony Khan talks to his talent on a constant basis. Tony Khan stays in touch with his talent. Unlike TKO, Triple H is the only one that stays in touch with the talent as we know it. Does Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro stay in touch with their talent? No, because in most cases, they don't see eye-to-eye value with it. And I think that's part of the problem with WWE as a whole. Your talent should be the top priority measure. Your talent should be the see-all, be-all to help you grow. But at the same time, we're not seeing that because X, Y, and Z reasons are blocking that narrative. And let's not even forget the value that AEW holds is you're fan first. There's the big key. Fan first. You put wrestling on the forefront. While WWE is thinking greed, money, and overall entertainment value shouldn't be incorporated into a wrestling structure. Wrestling should be your focal point, nothing more, nothing less. And I'll turn it over to you. You there, CJ?
Okay, since DJ said that, and this is a good part of my explanation of this. The primary goes, the handling stories, and the respond to fan backlash. Why is it so important? It's pretty much simple. The respond to fan backlash for WWE, I'll start with WWE first. If they can't respond to fan backlash and, you know, get with their creative team and work something out, here's where it can become a problem and why AEW is winning that topic. First is because of the hardcore fan base. They don't want anything to do with a hardcore fan base. We see it. It's always normal matches, you know, normal this, normal that, normal this. Okay. You're putting the same thing on the product every single time and not giving us something new, especially with same people that are getting pushed over and over and over and over again, and you're not letting the newer talent get in their name by not only, you know, having like a veteran versus, you know, rookie match. You know, back in the day of WCW, I can remember them putting the storylines of, you know, the new guy taking on this veteran. You know, same thing with NWA, National Wrestling Alliance. You know, they have these story structures to where, okay, we're going to do this, you know, since he's a legend in NWA, we're going to move him, work her with this newer guy to make a rivalry out of this. So in other words, this legend is pretty much going to build your name up. This is what wrestling needs to be about. You need to have your legends, your veterans, build the newer guys up so they understand the fundamentals and the artwork behind professional wrestling, rather than just having guys like TKO that's, you know, destroying talent and stories, which, you know, don't even make sense half the time. Don't get me wrong about this. I love professional wrestling. I love WWE. But at the same time, you got to get away from that TKO structure. They are the leech that is killing that company and killing everything that everybody loves about that company. You're taking, you know, a big risk on, you know, losing a bunch of fan base, especially the hardcore fan bases that AEW is currently beating you at, because AEW is putting on better stories and they know how to handle the talent because they are putting on better stuff, and their roster is got a structure to where they can revenue the budgets. In other words, they can afford all these, people like Chris Jericho, MJF, Sting, Mick Foley, Ricky Morton, the list goes on and on and on. You guys got to think that, just because that WWE's making, profit by adding more money into this, are they really filling in the seats? Because here's what I believe, with the talent sharing and holding thing, and this is what really gets to me as a fan. If they are really wanting to make that happen, as respond to a fan backlash, especially over the high pricing seats that they had with WrestleMania and all these other pay-per-views that they could have fixed, they should have, came with a reasonable price and say, okay, how can we fix this to where we're not getting bashed on the internet about outrageous ticket pricing that is affecting us, that is going to drain our core value of our primary goal of, maybe it is shareholder value, maybe it is global media rights, maybe it's predictive quarterly revenue. Whatever the main thing is of WWE's primary goal, they need to fix that primary goal and put it to full motion. They need to quit worrying about what AEW does. If you are so threatening that AEW and you have to compete with AEW, why are you even worried about them if you're a big company anyways? That is the thing that I want to ask personally. I may get feedback on this, and then again, I may get question of why I'm going after WWE or asking them a simple question. Why are you worried about so much of AEW and Tony Khan when you're the bigger company here? Show us something. Show us some hardcore fan base. Show us some, storytelling that we can live off of. Show us some, hardcore values, especially, you want to. Here's their biggest problem, DJ. I don't know if you ever watched this, but when they put Paul Heyman in the Hall of Fame with the ECW thing, why would you put? I understand why you put Paul Heyman in the Hall of Fame, but why would you bring ECW into this when you killed ECW off the map and disrespected legends like Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, Sabu, Shane Douglas, the franchise, one of my favorites. The franchise Shane Douglas is very good at, working with these newer guys. But at the same time, going back on this goal here with the talent stories, respond to fan backlash, and primary goal, WWE, you need to be setting an example that, hey, maybe we need to work with the fans, see what we can do to help that feedback so we're not getting many complaints on WWE as a whole. And maybe we can work something out. That way we can get our revenue back up and get it to where it's going to be meeting our start market value and meeting so we can pay maybe for them debts or, whatever you guys want to do. But I'm just giving you topics here. I'm just giving you examples here that you could go by to maybe help yourself. Same with AEW, moving on to AEW. Primary goes handling talent and stories and respond to fan backlash. AEW is hitting all of these. It's like checkmate after checkmate after checkmate. They swung 3 home runs compared to WWE in this go because they listened to their hardcore fan base with the response to fan backlash. They have gave talent creative freedom, whatever they wanted to do. And it wasn't like, they had a big problem out of it. It was like, okay, we're giving you creative freedom. Don't mess this up. We're going to let you do this. You just need to show us, why we trusted you and why we are letting you do this. And the main thing, the reason why they are letting them do this is because, especially, hire talent like Chris Jericho that's, been in the business, been in ECW, been in WWE. They know that Chris Jericho can carry the weight of bringing that company up. And we're seeing it. I mean, look at the match with Tommaso Ciampa he had. Jericho is absolutely this is probably one of the best Jerichos I've seen in his whole entire career with the Painmaker. You saw what he did with the drill to Tommaso Ciampa's head. You saw what he did, especially mocking Tommaso Ciampa, same as Tommaso Ciampa mocking Chris Jericho. The storytelling was right on point, and it made you feel like you was at home. You know, to me, you know, as a hardcore fan, it made me feel like I was watching ECW all over again with the whole match that I personally love with, you know, the franchise Shane Douglas and Taz. It brought that kind of vibe out. And, you know, being a part and seeing this structure laid out, it brings a lot of things to the next level of wrestling. You're taking the metrics versus the art of wrestling to a whole different level, because now WWE is more about the corporate metric side, and you got AEW, which is the art of wrestling. So that's how these two are compared and different from each other. Point blank. Now, as we move, if DJ's pretty much answered
Now, here's one thing that I'm going to say, and I'm just going to keep it short and sweet with this. You bring up a situation that holds a lot of volume. Chris Jericho's gimmick, the Painmaker. He wanted to bring this gimmick to WWE, but WWE shut it down as he brought that gimmick to New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I just want to put that out there because Chris Jericho is a genius when he came up with that gimmick, the Painmaker. That same Painmaker persona went up against Kenny Omega in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it sparked a lot of value in their match at the Tokyo Dome at Wrestle Kingdom. And look at what the Painmaker gimmick is giving AEW now versus what the Painmaker could have been in WWE. That's where I'm going to leave it at that.
Now, going back to this thing, what I was going to talk about. If DJ's through with this, now we're going to move over to a whole new thing that I'm going to bring out to the table. And this is going to be a crucial thing that we're going to talk about in this. Roster management and budgets, TKO and WWE versus AEW. And DJ, before we get into this, I'm going to go ahead and knock this out here with the corporate efficiency. So we're going to start off with WWE, and this is the topic I want to start off with. I'm going to try to get this pulled up here. So we're going to start off with the corporate efficiency. I'm going to put this here, but I'm also going to put this on top here. I'm going to put this so everybody can see this. We're going to start off with the roster management and budgets, TKO WWE versus AEW. The TKO WWE module, corporate efficiency and assets yield. I'm going to start off first. Under TKO, WWE treats its talent roster with rigorous financial discipline of public trade media. The trim the fat mandate. The TKO leadership, including President Nick Khan and Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque, systematically reviews a payroll to maximize operation revenue and upset corporate overhead. Major roster cuts, such as the deep post-WrestleMania waves that saw long-standing foundational acts like The New Day, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods exit, highlight this legacy is immune when corporate efficiently takes over. Not only Kofi Kingston, the White Six. You had, a lot of other names. Motor City Machine
Guns being another one.
Yeah, Motor City Machine Guns was a part of this, massive budget cut stuff.
Aleister Black and Zelina Vega being another one.
Yeah, and the Motor City Machine Guns was one of my favorite tag teams. This is the reason why that I don't watch WWE. They took one of their best tag teams and pretty much kicked it out the door. Now, Could we see Motor City Machine Guns in AEW? Who knows? But going back to the TV format shift dictating headcount. Roster size is mathematically tied to television real estate. For example, when a flagship show like SmackDown transitions down to a 2-hour format, the corresponding reduction in television time directly triggers roster cuts to eliminate talent overhead that is no longer featured on weekly broadcast. Contract and payroll length. Reports regarding contractor renewers indicate if TKO utilizes its market dominance to tightly manage exponentials, keeping payroll discipline, while corporate executive compensation packages scale heavily based on shareholders' metrics and stock performance. So why these are important for WWE and what can WWE do to, like I said, get that money up where they can pay for these people that's being released and pay for people that feels like that they should be paid more than what they was, paid when they got released. This is where the roster management and budget comes into play with this whole scenario with WWE and TKO. Why I think it's a good thing to literally trim the fat mandate, TV format shift dictating headcount, and also contract and payroll length. Going back to the trim the fat mandate when they want to cut people off. I understand that you are using a lot of stars that you're not using, and then you want to leave them out the door. But think about especially the television audience they bring to the table, such as the New Day, the White Six, Motor City Machine Guns. That was your best tag team that you had in WWE, and now you're bringing up new tag team because you didn't have no tag team because you pretty much left them out the door. Think about what you're doing before you really bite yourself in the ass. Another thing I'm going to say here, and this brings to a deep discussion, and I think DJ will agree with me on this about this topic, is when you have a show like Raw or SmackDown, and let's say, Raw and SmackDown's 3-hour show from 8 to 11. Okay, if you are, cutting down and, giving releases and doing pay cuts, how are you supposed to have a 3-hour show when now you don't have enough, members on your rosters to cover a 3-hour show? And then not only that, but you're covering two things. One, you got to figure out how you're going to pull off a 3-hour show. And two, you got to have to figure out, okay, since I've, eliminated all three of my good tag teams, for example, let's take the New Day, Motor City Machine Guns, and the White Six. You cut them off. So in other words, you're behind the scenes saying, okay, since I cut these tag teams off, what can I do to get another tag team in that can replace them? Now you should have rethought that, because you should have just looked at it as a fan perspective instead of the money perspective, and you should have said, okay, these guys brings in, for the tag team, these guys bring in the fans. So what can I do to not put them on the payroll cut? Is there anybody else we can, put on the payroll cut that we don't use that's not bringing in the fan base that we can pretty much let go? Especially people that you're not using and you're using just for the money structure. You don't need, if some guy is wanting, $1 million contract and he's not bringing in the fans, why the fuck are you having him on TV? I mean, you're just, throwing money out like it's, a fucking strip club, for God's sake. And this is the reason why that I'm literally going all in on WWE right now, because you don't think like a fan. You think more money than you do a fan about when you release people like the White Six, and the Motor City Machine Guns. Them, especially the New Day. These three teams should not have been cut, as well as Aleister Black and Selena Vega. Those 5 should have never been cut off of the structure, off of the WWE contract. You should have looked through that roster entirely and say, okay, who could we cut off besides these 5? Personally, I think, I'm probably going to get a major backlash for this, but personally, I think one of those should have been, Logan Paul. Why the fuck is a YouTuber on fucking wrestling that, to me, don't even have any knowledge about wrestling whatsoever? And, Kevin Impact makes a very good point on this topic. Why do you put a YouTuber in professional wrestling when he's only been trained at the Performance Center? He should have worked his way up like everybody else. Just because he brings, people into WWE, you got to look at it as a indie thing too. You're taking a YouTuber that's have, so many viewers on YouTube and compare him to a guy that's worked his ass off in the indies. You're smacking the guy in the indies in the face because they are putting in the work for that opportunity. You don't think about the indie side of things. You think about the money and you say, oh, he's going to bring in the money. He's going to bring in more people. Think about the business. Think about the wrestling business. Don't think about pop culture or, these little high celebrities that think, they can just come in because they got, everybody's going to be behind them. Think about it as wrestling business. Don't think of it as like, oh, he's, our golden boy. He's their poster boy. He's the face of the... Okay, first of all, DJ, I'm sorry I'm going to say this on the No Ring, No Rules podcast, but in the words of Fred Sanford and Son, I'm going to look at you WWE corporate bunches and look at you and say the words of Fred Sanford, you big dummies, what are you doing? First of all, going behind the scenes and cutting off people that don't need to be cut off of the roster. That's why you having trouble finding talent to replace the New Day, the White Six, and the Motor City Machine Guns, and Aleister Black and Selena Vega. You could have kept all 5 of them on the roster. You could have worked out something, maybe, somebody that was right before them. You could, literally cut somebody off besides them 5. Maybe,
exactly.
You could have cut.
Like you should have never cut Dakota Kai. Now look at this.
I could tell you a name that definitely needs to be cut on the show. And one of those names is your current Women's World Champion. What the fuck is Liv Morgan doing with the belt again?
Facts.
I mean, we've getting that shoved down our throats. Why? Because she's in a faction with the Judgment Day? Why? Because you put a storyline between her and Dominic Mysterio? I mean, here's the thing that you're not understanding, WWE. You are taking this and playing this as a field of literally bashing everybody you have payroll cut throughout these years, and you're not thinking as a fan base, okay, what can they bring to the table that I may need to, defend them and bring them into the roster and try to talk sense to some of these people not to give, corporate cuts. You guys don't think about that. You guys think about, okay, we're just going to release them. We get somebody else to take her place. This is the reason why we got the fucking the Vision as tag team champions right now. Braun Breaker should have never been a tag team champion. You should have already put him as a world heavyweight champion. That's what I'm going to say here. You should already fired Logan Paul, as Joe Hendry would say. Paul, can we fire Logan Paul? Hell yeah, fire Logan Paul. Send his bitch ass back to YouTube. That's what I think about that scenario.
Let me go join his brother in boxing.
Yeah, go join boxing. But at the same time, don't put Logan Paul in the same thing as wrestling. He has no business in the wrestling. What has he done besides boxing, making a big name celebrity-wise? He's done nothing. People like CM Punk and people like Roman Reigns has been grinding in the wrestling business that, for example, here's a good one that I'm going to name. Let's look at the generations of wrestling. Randy Orton, third generation wrestler that's been in WWE. Cowboy Jr., Bob Orton Jr., Randy Orton's dad, been a wrestler for that company. Let's take a look at, Braun Breaker's side. You got Rick Steiner. Guess what? Rick Steiner has a brother, Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. You got different generations of families that need to have their, kids in WWE to save that. But at the same time, the people that don't have nothing knowledge about how the wrestling business is, especially inside the ring, don't need to be in there. That's the ones you need to budget cut. Basically, what I'm saying. Getting back over this, if DJ wants to add to this, you're more than prepared. But I'm going to ask you one question, DJ. Why do you think WWE's failing in the corporate efficiency and yield asset, as well as the budget cuts, as we saw with the New Day, Motor City Machine Guns, with the White Six, Aleister Black, and Selena Vega?
Here's 3 reasons why they are failing tremendously. Number 1, you lack the viewership for everything going in. Ever since you've done this 2-night festivity thing with your events, you have literally lost value in WWE's shows. Number 2, and this is I should have made this number 1. Saudi Arabia, anybody? We don't need to dive in and talk about it like we should, but it's self-explanatory. Number 3, you have less eyes on the real talent that's making the impact versus the talent that you see is doing the damage, doing everything necessary, and that's killing your product. Why are we putting names like Jade Cargill, Tiffany Stratton, and Roman Reigns as primary focal points, when if you look at AEW, you've given us a plethora of names such as Will Ospreay, John Moxley and his Death Rider team, Daniel Ricochet, to name a few. They're getting more recognition in AEW than the names that you have in front of you. Because who wants to constantly see Liv Morgan on a television screen? Who wants to constantly see the bloodline led by Roman Reigns and the Usos and Sami Zayn and the Usos and Jacob Fatu? When in all due seriousness, the bloodline shouldn't even be a focal point at all. You should be giving at least Jacob, Jimmy, and Jay their recognition, especially Jimmy Uso. Yet, this is why the lack of interest is there. Because we're not giving the names that should be valued more. Like, when are y'all going to ever give LA Knight his opportunity to really show that he's a main event player? You basically dropped the ball with Jey Uso. Hell, you dropped the ball with Gunther when he had the opportunity to do so. And you dropped the ball with Damian Priest when he had the title. Nah, don't get me wrong. I like what I'm seeing, but they could do better with this. When AEW is firing on all cylinders on what they've done. They've used John Moxley way more better and Claudio Castagnoli way more better and Pac than what they were in WWE. And that's saying something. And I'll leave it at that.
Now, since DJ's done answering this, we're going to get into more details with this. We're going to start in with another thing that needs to be discussed. And this right here, I think is a huge asset, if you could say this. If I could say this in its entirety. We're going to do a tale of the tape. This is the first time I'm going to do this on the In-Ring, No Ring, No Rules podcast. And I hope you guys are ready for this tale of the tape. So if this thing will work with me, it's pretty much being a now we get to the tale of the tape portion. And this is the reason why that I say this is so structured between the two. AEW versus WWE in the roster budget philosophy. You got WWE that is a Wall Street profitability, EBITDA goals, and corporate synergy. Then you got the roster strategy, lean and optimized TV time allocation, talent management, corporate efficiency, asset yield. Then for AEW, you got the private wealth backing, brand expansion, industry leverage, roster strategy, expansion, and deep multiple shows, then creative freedom and robust partnership. DJ, what's the difference between these two, and drive that success wedge in between the two, why it's important to have it and why it's not important to have it at the same time. You got the floor, brother. But I think DJ is out of here. So I'll do the why it's important to know it and why it's not. The first thing that I see here is the Wall Street. Why this is so important for WWE, it remains to be seen a question. Some people, as myself, sees that, WWE wants to maintain as that, global phenomenon, but at the same time, breaking down with their fan base, if they don't get their fan base together, the budget ain't going to matter. The roster ain't going to matter. And especially if the roster don't survive, their talent management officials ain't going to survive. Backing with AEW, creative freedom and expansive and deep and multiple shows, they are literally showing everybody that, just because that you got one company that does not exceed the amount of expectations to this, AEW is pretty much driving a wedge in WWE, not only through its roster, but also the way they do their budget and philosophy, and also for the business portion. As you can see, WWE is making sure that AEW is trying to fail. And we saw it, with NXT, putting NXT on the same time as AEW to try to have like a brand wars. But we saw AEW won the brand wars. So what I'm trying to say here, and I'm going to try to close this up for the podcast, because our next show on episode 7, we're going to cover a lot of things for part 2 of this. We're going to cover the aspects on the live event strategies and TV details media rights. On the same episode, we're going to do a part 2 later on today. We're going to cover those topics. But as far as these topics, I feel like I covered enough. If you guys also have any questions, or if you guys want to put your input in it, now's the time to do so. But I feel like that seeing this, and especially what WWE, is doing to try to compete with AEW, I think it's a sorry excuse of WWE trying to come back because they know they're failing in categories that they can't fix. And it's sad to say that coming from, myself as a huge WWE guy, and I love WWE for what it is for the business, but AEW's got to beat when it comes to hardcore fan base. Not only because AEW knows how to put better storytelling, because they hired better creative writers than what WWE had. WWE's trying to be cheap with their creative writers, and we see that. And, the main factor is, with the whole cheap thing, cheap's only going to get you as close as from a stick from a river. You throw a stick in the river, and guess what? That stick's not going to not even float. First of all, that river is going to pretty much drown it out. And second of all, that stick's not going to get you across that river. So you got to think about it. How am I going to get across that river and cross this goal to not only successfully complete that goal, but also complete the corporate structures, roster management, and even the budgets before you can get onto the arenas and ticket prices, TVs, and media rights. But this is the topic that I want to talk about before I end the podcast. Another thing I want to talk about is are you a fan of WWE or AEW? Personally, myself, I'm more leaning towards AEW because I'm a Chris Jericho fan. Don't get me wrong. I love WWE, love Brock Lesnar, but Jericho is where it's at. I feel like that Tony Khan for AEW is doing a great business decision by picking up Jericho. It's brought him revenue. He's pretty much raised AEW up to where it is. And seeing this, it goes back to the thing that the reason why that I love Jericho is not only, he was a undisputed champion for WWE. He was he created the Money in the Bank ladder match. I don't know if anybody knew that, but he was one that helped WWE create that match to where it's, a big phenomenon in the business. So, props to Jericho for that. Jericho was also in my favorite ECW, which ECW is one of my favorites, watching, Shane Douglas, Rhino, Taz, Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, Terry Funk, you put all those guys in, ECW episodes, even the New Jack, Original Gangster. Those were the guys that made ECW what it was today, what it was, then. But I'm more leaning towards AEW as a fan because AEW is bringing in more fan base for their hardcore. But now, since that's out of the question, guys, we're going to end this podcast for part 1, and we will come back for you for part 2 for the live events, strategies, arena size, and ticket prices, and TV deals and media rights. We're going to get onto those discussions on part 2. So, ladies and gentlemen, be there for episode 7, part 2, because we're going to cover from where we left off. And we're going to cover comparance and differences between the two of TKO and AEW. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for spending your morning with us. And most importantly, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss another episode such as this or any other thing that I do with the channel. And we will see you guys on the next one.